On October 10th, Chattanooga Mayor Tim Kelly announced a project designed to help the homeless veteran population. The city was awarded at least $12.5 million to create a campus to house homeless veterans with resources on site to support that community. This project is a partnership with the people behind the Heart of a Lion Foundation, nonprofit Frontline Response, and others.
Before Freedom Homestead was even an opportunity, we were hearing from Mayor Kelly and his team their passion for making sure that unhoused veterans were served well. So before they even knew there would be an opportunity to come down the road, that conviction and that commitment was already being vocalized. And so it really was a very natural progression once this opportunity came along to talk about, okay, what could this really look like in Chattanooga?
This is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This is the podcast that tells the stories of the people who call the Tennessee Valley home. We examine the problems we're all facing, and we talk to those working on solutions. I'm Josh Roe. I'll be your host for this journey. Today, we have a conversation with Jeff Shaw. He's the National Expansion Officer with Frontline Response. We're talking about a project to house homeless veterans in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They're planning something that has never been done before.
Yeah, so Frontline Response, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. And our mission is twofold. We want to help individuals that are trapped in homelessness or sex trafficking get out. And we want to help prevent children and other vulnerable individuals from ever falling in. So we've been primarily headquartered in Atlanta, but then we branched out to Columbus, Ohio about 8 years ago. We're working on launching in South Florida, which is where I am now, and Houston, Texas. And so on this journey, we were having conversations with Chattanooga, Hamilton County about doing some of our homelessness and trafficking services there. And then someone else who had heard about what we were doing contacted Heart of a Lion Foundation and said, hey, we think we have this innovative idea to help unhoused veterans. Chattanooga is an area that has a lot of unhoused veterans and a very strong veteran presence that wants to do something about it. What if we reached out to see if we could raise some funding, if Frontline could help lead an effort for what we're calling the Freedom Homestead? And the Freedom Homestead would be 100 units, kind of barrack style, with community facilities on the campus, some recreational activities, hiking, fishing, all that kind of thing. And would basically be a place where we could bridge unhoused veterans out of crisis onto this campus, and then provide wraparound services like individual case planning, behavioral health, case management, and then help move them toward independence and permanent sustainable housing.
You mentioned Heart of a Lion. I'm not familiar with them, but what do they do? How are they involved in this?
Sure. Heart of a Lion Foundation is John Daly, the pro golfer, and Major Ed Polito, who's a veteran himself. And they are really big on veterans efforts. So a group called Vika Living that is going to be providing those housing units was in conversation with them and recommended Frontline Response as the service provider. So that opened up the conversations.
I saw in there that initially it's a $12.5 million award. It could grow much larger than that. Tell me how that works, how that could grow.
Yeah. So the Heart of a Lion Foundation is making the commitment of $12.5 million over 3 years. And as often happens in fundraising, you take an initial commitment and then you can leverage it with other foundations and donors to say, hey, we've already got the first 12.5 raised, and then we're not asking you to jumpstart something. We're asking you to help us continue gathering momentum. So we're going to be talking to foundations in the Chattanooga, Hamilton County region. And then we'll be talking to national foundations as well that have a heart for veterans causes, because what we're proposing to do in Chattanooga is really a pilot of of an idea that we think can be scaled across the United States. So this is not a one and done in our minds or in the minds of Heart of a Lion. It's let's do it in Chattanooga. And then as that's happening, let's start having conversations with other cities that have the interest and the means of doing similar projects for unhoused veterans there.
I understand. And boy, we've seen this happen before, right? Where people get on board and say, this sounds great. We want to do this. And then the question of, okay, where's it going to be? And I know you don't have specifics about a location, but when you do think about these ideas, what do you use to guide that decision?
Sure. So when we're talking about land selection, well, let me clarify your question, Josh. Are you wondering about how we selected the initial region or how we're going to go about selecting the specific land?
I think both are good questions, but yeah, let's get into it first. Just the idea, right? We see this often where a community supports this initially until they realize, oh wait, this is close to this place, and I don't want something like this close to this place. That kind of idea. Yeah. So with that thought in mind, how do you go about navigating that potential hurdle as you go through that?
Yeah, gotcha. We'll be working closely with Hamilton County to identify the right land. And a big part of this is we're going to be looking for something that's rural acreage, and we want it to be USDA qualified because there are unique grants that will become available by doing it that way. And some of those are veterans grants, some of them are integrated care grants and also knowing that some of the services that we offer on the campus to our veterans could also be available to the community. So there may be citizens in the region that would benefit from behavioral health services that could access those clinics and services as well through some of these USDA qualified grants. So that's a big piece of it. And at the same time, we do need to have some level of basic infrastructure close by, right? So public utilities, public water, sewer, and we might be able to work with the county to extend some of that into whatever land is selected, but we're definitely not looking to plop down in the middle of a city or a well-populated area because we really want 90 plus acres of primary rural land.
Yeah. So you mentioned region and I guess city. Like, how do you choose? Because you could go anywhere in America. I'm sure there's a homeless issue in a lot of cities, right? So how do you go about that, deciding where to attack, invest, put your mission on, those kind of ideas? Where do you make those decisions as far as that goes?
Yeah, it was very helpful that we had already been in conversations with Chattanooga a year before this idea of a freedom homestead even came to pass. So there was already momentum about Frontline getting a presence in the area. And then we went and looked at a place in Sacramento, California, Houston, Texas, around our headquarters in Atlanta, and then Chattanooga, Hamilton County. And what we found is the availability of the officials there, their excitement and interest in bringing the project. It was less of us trying to convince and more of them saying, hey, how can we make sure we're selected? And so when we were talking about outreach efforts and a pipeline to identify unhoused veterans and get them to this campus, and working with the county to identify the right land. And then even within the court system, there's a new veterans court pilot that's going to be launching soon. That's very unique and a perfect tie-in to what we're going to be doing. And then the local veterans council there in the area and their support with Mr. McCamish and the veterans that he works and advocates for, it really did just make it clear pretty early on that Chattanooga, Hamilton County was a perfect place to launch the pilot.
I've talked to Chris Dooley about the Veterans Court, and that's something they've tried through years, tried to do, hit a roadblock or whatever, revisited. So that's interesting that's going to move forward. You talked about the city and the county. Is both city government and county government involved in this as well?
Yes, it's going to require partnership with both City of Chattanooga and Hamilton County.
So tell me about this, right? When we deal with our homeless population, it's a complicated task, right? We often be through media at times and other ways of explaining what's going on, be politics. we try to simplify, the homeless community, first of all, and the problems. And the problems are vast. Every individual has their own story. They have their own reason for being in the situation they're in, and their own, whatever that is. How do you navigate that? Because I know just through the years of the city trying to house homeless, people who've been homeless in the past, they'll get housing and then they'll fall out of housing, and they'll get into housing, fall out of housing, or they'll, maybe it's a substance issue, or maybe a prior criminal background. A lot of different things could come into play as far as challenges of getting a community to relocate to a rural, property and say, okay, we're going to be here for a while. How do you navigate? I know that's a broad question, but how do you navigate some of those hurdles that we all see in every city that has a homeless issue they're trying to work through, the hurdles that they face?
Yeah, there's definitely not a one size fits all. And so individualized care plans are critical, and understanding too, choice is key. We can't make anybody do anything. We're not proposing that a Freedom Homestead is going to end all homelessness in Chattanooga, Hamilton County. But what we are saying is our commitment is that any unhoused veteran who wants and needs help is going to have access to it. And so if that bridge housing that not only says, okay, you got a home, now have a great life, but saying, hey, do you have unresolved PTSD? Do you have a traumatic brain injury? Do you have substance use issues? This integrated care concept is going to provide innovative solutions like brain mapping technology, and again, integrating case management, psychiatric care, but not just having all these things siloed from each other. But the whole notion of integrated care is you're bringing all those pieces together: nutrition, hygiene, sleep, brain mapping, and you're providing holistic care, spiritual components for those veterans who want to have faith engagement. So it's really bringing all those things within that campus and giving them every opportunity to launch into a fresh start in life.
Thank you again to Jeff Shaw from Frontline Response. And thank you for listening to Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of NewsChannel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. We hope you join us again real soon.